these, maybe every generation had strange days, but oh my goodness, we are in strange times. Yeah, so it was suggested that you might want to know a little bit about me. So that was a quick summary, but what it ignores is what my spiritual path was. So I grew up in very much upper middle class Ohio, Toledo to be exact. Yes, Klinger's hometown. And growing up in middle class Republican Ohio, okay, which I cared nothing about politics growing up. But at age 14, walking back from Washington Congregational Church, I was crossing one of the playing fields at the high school, and I felt that call. I felt that kind of call at age 14 that brought me to my knees and said, I need to serve God. Now, God was sort of a version of God that I still own, but it was this rather open and receptive version of the Congregationalist movement. And if you don't know about Congregationalism, we go back to the Pilgrims. And after we landed, then we went on, a century later, to form Harvard, and we went on to be the inspiration to form Yale. I only learned that recently, that we were pretty educationally devoted to raising spirit through raising of consciousness. If Harvard and Yale do that still, I don't know. So I went to college. Now that in itself was a miracle, because I graduated high school with a C- average. I was not a good student. And as you may have been able to tell by my vocal range, I was born male. Yeah. And although since age 4 I knew that I had the feminine within me, raised in that culture of the 50s and 60s, I had to kind of go, yeah, but. So went along with life, and I got in by the skin of my teeth, and possibly my father's wallet. I don't know about that. They never told me that. But I got into a Methodist school in Adrian, Michigan, Adrian College. Now I am proud to say that I managed within 2 years to flunk Introduction to the Bible twice. And as if that wasn't enough, I flunked Basic Christian Beliefs twice. Somehow I knew that dogma and I were not going to be good friends, and that I probably didn't belong in a church, specifically Methodism, which was what Adrian was. Lovely people, but their way of seeing the world and my way of seeing the world, I kept answering the questions the way I thought. My answer wasn't their answer. So I kind of threw the ministry out the window and decided that the calling was still valid, but as a matter of doing Christian service, I would work with my fellow human beings to try to express love. Because I remember going and visiting Dr. Cook, who was our minister. And this guy had that Harvard PhD, Boston Seminary, very learned, published guy. Right? I remember going back in his office and sobbing after I flunked Basic Christian Beliefs twice. I said, I don't get it. The church is about love. Christ was about love. What happened? What is all this? You can't do this and you can't do that. You can do this and you can't do that. I'm one of those people that if I believe I'm doing everything through love, God takes care of it, right? If I'm doing it all from a generosity of spirit and giving, it takes care of it. The other significant thing that then happened about age 15 was that I was going to class one day and I got a call to the counselor's office. I was one of those kids that never got called anywhere. I was like, pretty straight. I wore white shirts, for crying out loud. They were tapered with that little Fruit Loop on the back. You guys remember the Fruit Loops? Yeah, that everybody wanted to run up and pull off. It was the next best sport to bra snapping in the 60s in my high school. So I get to the counselor's office and they say you need to go home right away, something's happened to your father. Well, I go home and Mom says we don't know what's going on, he's at the hospital. My father, who, as it turns out, after his death, we really found out that he was a closeted gay man. That he had been where he definitely shouldn't have been. We knew that. He'd been visiting a bar on his way home. This is a guy wearing a coat and tie, probably a suit. Went to a bar trying to most likely pick somebody up, a man up, that he didn't need to belong with, right? In that generation. And somebody beat the snot out of him and left him out in a cornfield in Ohio to die. And he was pretty messed up. But still, there was no conversation about what that was about because, well, the word gay hadn't quite made it out of New York City yet. Stonewall was just in the process of having happened. You know, last month was Pride Month. It all began back with people of color standing up to the police and saying, you will not stop us from being who we are. That was the beginning of Pride. If anybody missed that, it was pretty well put out this year on news media. So we didn't talk about that. We pretended, like a lot of families did, who have a rhinoceros for a dining room table, that occasionally a tsetse fly bites the rhinoceros. The rhinoceros goes into a rampage, destroys the emotional environment of the house. And then you coax it back in the dining room and you put the tablecloth back over, straighten the corners, and smooth out the wrinkles, and say nothing happened. You probably know that story. Okay, so I grew up in one of those households, and then I flunked out of college. And then, because the story has to work, I got drafted. Remember, I was a guy. I flunked the draft exam. I flunked the draft? Who does that? I did it. I flunked the draft exam. And so mission continued, and I said goodbye to the Midwest and I moved to Montana. Okay? Found this an interesting place. I had distanced myself from the church, from church heads. Occasionally I was still singing at weddings and stuff because I have a voice. But I was singing bass in the choir at 14, same year that I had Revelation. So anyway, come to Montana and realize that I still believe in love. And I still believe in God. But I was scared near to death of going near a church. And it wasn't until I got into recovery as the adult child of an alcoholic family system, and I was so angry. I remember going to that first adult children of alcoholics meeting. I don't want to be here. You know, and I met a room full of people that grew up in my house. And it began to change my life for really good things. So, and the 12-step program, which I hated because my father had been part of it, I got so tired of the praying hands and that serenity prayer nonsense. Didn't like any of it. And then it saved my life, like it has for so many people. Because it helped me learn what I have control over and what I don't have control over. And that brings me back to strange days. We have a feeling as if we don't have control right now. I don't care where you are on the political spectrum. We live in a house divided. I'm going to lose this thing. There. We live in a house divided, and the division is hate. The division is hate. I don't know if love is ever divisive. When love comes from here, when spirit is here, I don't know if love is ever divisive. I believe it's a unifying factor. Light challenging darkness is the story of the human race. We have been trying to find a way to make the light, spirit, love, something that we can put into words and make tangible, doesn't work so well. Love is something only if you give it away. I don't have time to do the warm fuzzy story today, but if you've never read the warm fuzzy story, use Google. It's out there. It is an old metaphor about the fact that we were taught that we can substitute for love things and objects and money. And we can't. I'm a disaster services Red Cross volunteer. I've been doing that for almost 16 years. And in the process of doing that, I meet people in the extremis of their lives. They have lost everything. Sometimes they've lost all of their animals. Sometimes they've lost their animals and a human. That's an extremis. And the people that are in that state need only one thing. They need a direct connection with other human beings. Yes, we give them a place to stay and we give them other things. But what we mostly do is take the compassion of love of spirit, of love of life, and transmit it to people who have just been, in that moment, kind of sucked dry of hope, of reason to go on. Despair is I consider one of the greatest evils of the human mind. It is so easy for us to begin to despair, to say that I have no power, I have no influence, I have no way to make my life better, I have no way to help anybody. And what do we say in spirit life? We talk about rising up. We talk about rising up and filling ourselves and others with spirit. That is what Strange Days is really about. In the midst of darkness, our mission as human beings who love and who care and who have compassion, regardless of whether you learn that with a God named Allah or you learn it with Yahweh. I'm trying to think of who outside the Abrahamic religious scheme we could address, because Buddha didn't really have God. Buddha just had get it, find it. There was something in this morning, it's not like the Heart Sutra almost, that when I let go of everything, I have me. And when I let go of everything and I have me, then the object is, how do I transmit that? How do I do it? You don't do it, you are it. You can't do love. You have to be love. You have to be spirit from the inside out. That was the course of my spiritual journey. All my life, I have not given because I wanted anything back. That baffles people. Recently, my partner and I had the ability to give a car to someone who needed a car. We just gave it to her and put $1,000 in repairs into it so that its 220,000-mile Subaru Heart could keep on, banging and clicking down the road a little bit longer. That's not a brag. That was just something we saw a need and we did this thing. Seeing a person without money on the street with the cardboard sign printed in the bucket or whatever in front of them, I don't know their story. I don't know if they had been a rich person or a poor person, or if they've done good in the world, or if they had done harm in the world. I don't know. But if I drop a few coins into the bucket, it means nothing to me and may mean everything to them because I have a few coins in my pocket. If I have no coins in my pocket, I can give this. I can give a smile to the person that looks like they haven't smiled for a long, long time. And make eye contact and actually mean it when I do it. All around the world, we are the same. And we are called to love by so many different religious practices, so many different philosophies, and the calling to love has to be felt here and come out to there. God, I want you all to know this, because Giving love is essential. I want to do another song after I have a sip. And this is the one I need a heartbeat for. Listen. Do you hear the sound? Hearts beating. All the world around. Down in the valley. Out on the plain. Everywhere around the world, a heartbeat sounds the same. Black or white, red or tan, it's the song of the heartbeat of man. Oh, it's beating again. Whoa, it's beating again. Oh, it's beating again. Who's going to get it for me? Listen. Can you hear the sound of laughter? All the world around. High in the mountains, down on the plain, everywhere around the world, a heartbeat sounds the same. Laughter. Black or white, red or tan, it's the sound of the laughter of man. Whoa, we're laughing away. Oh, we're laughing away. Oh, we're laughing away. Got it. Listen. Can you hear the sound of singing? All the world around. Some of you know this, sing it. Walking through the jungle or on a busy city street. Everywhere around the world singing sounds so sweet. Black or white, red or tan, it's the song of the family of man. Whoa, we're singing away. Whoa, we're laughing again. Whoa, we're heart beating again. Thank you. That's a children's song. Brett Bramer wrote this, made this album called Teaching Peace. That's a children's song. But it resonates with us because we recognize that the common threads of all humanity are those things. Our hearts beat. We sing. Even those who say they don't sing. You sing in your mind. I know you sing. I hear your song. And we laugh. Laughter is this thing. These are the common threads of all humanity that we all are a part of. And it's time to claim that in our individual lives and love with all the power that Spirit can give us. That's what is true. There is no limit to love. These are strange days. And the more we can let that love come out and be shared with the people that we don't want to share it with because they're angry, they're sad, they're lost. And we don't need to explain politics to them or anything else. We are encouraged, we are led to simply love and love well. Love does heal all. That is what my calling was to teach love in every possible venue that I could reach. I do it in the therapy room. We do it in our podcast and our video blogs. We do it with the interviews we do with ranch families in the middle of eastern Montana and in the valley here. We're collecting those stories. That is the object of my new work, is putting the stories of Montanans, everyday Montanans, out there for people to see, because not only do I believe in love, this is a weird state. Okay, I came here as a 1960s hippie in big overalls with lots of embroidery on it. Okay? I am now a transgendered person, of, when did I turn? 25 years or something like that I decided to change gender. That turned out to be not a big mountain at all. It was a little bump, just a little bump. Thought it was going to be something big, and I waited through 2 marriages and children and grandchildren. Well, I wouldn't trade for anything. But love is the one transmission we must give, and we must give it abundantly. And we know that God is our source. In whatever way you know the divine energy is the source, and it is endless. Endless. So remember that when you feel lonely, when you feel down, when you feel close to despair, retune. Retune. Not atonement, just retune, like the radio dial. Tune God back in. Tune the divine back in. Bring it through every fiber of your body, and you will have that endless fount all the way until you decide physically to leave this plane. It'll be there. Hey, thanks.
Thank you, Anne. What a wonderful goal for all of us, to be loved. Just to be loved. It was very inspirational. So it's time now for our second psalm. What's it going to be, LeGrand?
How could anyone ever tell you that you were anything but beautiful? I think you have the words in your handout. Stand with me if you'd like and sing along. If you'd like to remain seated, that's fine.